On 8th March 2020, we joined millions of women across the world in a day of radical actions. Since the pandemic, more than ever, women are feeling the weight of society and the crisis of care on our shoulders. Our labour may have become more visible and recognised as essential, but the exploitation and violence in our homes and workplaces has intensified. We can't take to the streets and community centres in the same way we have in previous years. The impossibility of the women's strike is clearer than ever, because it is our exploited labour that keeps everyone alive and profits flowing. After a year of isolation, let's not forget the power that we held when we came together, and that we will hold when we strike again.
So the protest doesn't inconvenience the people in power, then why should they care about it?
We started the day early, with around 500 women and kids gathering in community centres and squares across the country.
And so we thought, what's an accessible, fun, political space that we could make where women can come together and talk about their lives and their kids can have a really good time and be cared for by people who don't usually shoulder the burden of care. And then that's how we came up with My Mum Was on Strike. 31% of families go into debt to pay for childcare. Half of all councils in England and Wales don't have enough childcare places. We need better funded childcare. But more than that, we want to share the care around. It's something that we know men want to be more involved in. And so making a space like this where we let them take the lead on care and we take the lead on talking about politics.
Got a dal, got curry, and we've got rice, and there's going to be a stir fry as well. And that's going to be ready in take-home boxes for the mums who are coming to the sessions tomorrow, where we're going to have people doing kids programs, making banners for the kids to go on the strike and the march tomorrow. And then when they get home, the point is the mums aren't going to have to do the evening meal.
I'm here today because I'm a mum of a very active 1.5-year-old, and I wanted to come along because, it's really exciting to be part of an event where my labour and all the labour that so many women do, caring for all kinds of dependents, but particularly children, is recognised. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's a really great atmosphere.
There is a role for all genders to participate in this, and in fact that it would require the participation of everyone to bring about women's autonomy. And ideally this isn't something that just happens on one day, it's something that we really sort of integrate into our organising as a whole. So we stop seeing domestic labour as something that isn't acknowledged as labour and is also the preserve of, usually people that are women.
In London, around 2,000 of us occupied Oxford Street and created an alternative to the hyper-consumerist and capitalist spaces that dominate our cities. The fashion industry runs on the modern slavery of millions of women. It is one of the biggest polluters and contributors to climate change, while consumption is driven by gendered insecurities. Shop workers are often paid the minimum wage on precarious contracts, whilst fast fashion is the only thing most of us can afford. We organised a mass clothes swap and creative takeover to say, yes, this is the system that we currently have to rely on, but if we come together, we can provide for each other and meet each other's needs.
As you walk down Oxford Street, you will see Uniqlo, which is holding out on a payment to 2,000 Indonesian garment workers who are owed £5.5 million. Zara, which has created the 6th richest man on the planet, made rich by women on Global South production lines.
Thousands of us performed A Rapist in Your Path, the dance which has been performed by feminists all over the world, identifying the state, police and the system as the perpetrators of violence. A range of groups held workshops, from feminism in Palestine to disability rights, transitioning and work, from anti-fascist self-defence to redecorating Oxford Street.
We're here today as the Kurdish Women's Initiative in the UK to show our solidarity with all the other women's organisations, to call for equality, for freedom, and to break down patriarchy.
In the evening, sex workers led a march through Soho to the Royal Courts of Justice, demanding the full decriminalisation of sex work and an end to legislation preventing us from working collectively. Low wages, benefit cuts and precarious jobs have pushed more of us into sex work. The response of the state has not been to end austerity, but to crack down on sex workers. Police raid brothels, strip clubs and flats, confiscate earnings, threaten, arrest and deport us. Despite this, sex workers across the country have begun unionising their workplaces, taking on bosses and winning.
The sex work strike is every sex worker that wants to join walking out of their jobs, shutting down their work social media, not answering their work phone for one day to protest the fact that we do not have decriminalisation and we do not have safety in the sex industry. The real goal is to reclaim the streets of Soho, which is known as a home to sex workers, and really make ourselves visible. Lots of politicians think that sex workers don't have voices, or that sex workers who have voices are too privileged to be heard. We want to be heard. We want to make it very, very clear that we know what is good for us and we know what is best for us, and that we're not going anywhere anytime soon.
6 other cities across the UK also organised radical days of feminist action, taking to the streets and community centres and organising Mums on Strike, performances of A Rapist in Your Path, marches and workshops. The next day, we joined UCU strike pickets on 24 universities across the country. We made it clear that the UCU strike demands of pay, pensions, job security, against gendered and racist pay gaps and workloads are all feminist issues. Our message was that the mass participation of feminists is necessary to transform universities from exploitative companies into spaces of collective learning and radical growth. The women's strike is about realising the power we already hold. It's not just our paid production and service work that keeps the world turning and profits flowing. It's also our consumption and the work we are expected to do for free, the cooking, cleaning and caring. We cannot undo this system without recognising how our labour and its exploitation is central to capitalism. The women's strike is not just a one-day event. It's a global movement of millions fighting for a feminist future. When we say we've had enough, and enough of us stop, the world stops with us. Join us.